Meet the Candidates series. The ARC of Pennsylvania hosts an interview of Tim Brennan, candidate for Bucks County's 29th House District, by Diana Polek, parent. The Meet the Candidates series is an opportunity for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families to hear from candidates on disability issues. Candidates from all parties have been invited to participate. The ARC of Pennsylvania is a non-partisan organization and does not endorse political candidates.
Everybody, and welcome to the ARC of Pennsylvania's Meet the Candidate. Today we have Tim Brennan, and Tim is a Democrat candidate running for the Pennsylvania House 29th District of Bucks County. He is running to replace retiring Representative Megan Schroeder. Tim is an active member of his community. His work as a lawyer and volunteer has centered on equality and ensuring the electoral system works for all and ending gerrymandering. Some of his key issues are paid family medical leave, education, the environment, LGBTQ+ rights, and criminal justice reform. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Just to give you a little background, so the ARC of Pennsylvania is the state's leading advocacy organization for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. We've been around quite a long time. We are coming up on our 72nd or 73rd anniversary. We are very lucky to have a great network of chapters throughout the state. We have 30 different chapters who represent different areas, and they have different programs. So many of our chapters are providers of the home and community-based system. Some chapters are just advocacy organizations. They're all advocacy organizations, but some don't do the individual services. So we're very lucky to have them support us. And with us today, we have the ARC Alliance, Jessica Wagaman, and Diana Polek, who will be asking the questions today. The ARC of Pennsylvania is all about raising the voices of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. That's how we started. We started with a group of parents who wanted more for their loved one, and their goal was to close institutions in Pennsylvania, and we're succeeding. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica and Diana.
Very, I appreciate it. And thanks so much, Tim, for joining us. With me today is Diana Polek. She is not only a parent and an advocate, but she's also a staff at the ARC Alliance as well. She's our office operations manager. So, you know, she definitely has her hands in the system and it's definitely making an impact. So just a little bit about Diana's son, Jim. He is 31 years old and he was diagnosed with a brain injury that was sustained after birth. So he started off with some physical therapy and speech therapy through the private insurance. And after that, the family started to learn about early intervention services, which he began receiving at the ARC Alliance. He received speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy until he reached school age. At school age, he participated in the special education programs and continued to receive speech and occupational therapies. He graduated at the age of 20 and now he's enjoying life to the fullest. He's actually really, really good at computers and very savvy and knows a lot about technology. So I want to hand it over to Diana to ask you some questions now.
Hi, Mr. Brennan. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, Diana, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And today is Jim's birthday. He's now 32 today.
Happy birthday.
I will relay that. Okay, our first question. How would you advocate for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families who are on the waiting list for community services?
Okay. I think supports and services evolved. People are better able to live their best lives in the community. But one of the biggest problems that we see is availability of services. I think the federal government is making strides to try and eliminate long waiting lists. And I know that in PA and other states, we're still struggling with it. as a representative, I will advocate for equity in service receipts, and frankly, we need a budget that permits more people to receive services. We should have a system where people don't have to wait so long for the services they need, and that can help them build, live better lives. And it really does start from budget priorities. I think we need to have a budget that structurally supports services in a better fashion, and that's something it's on my campaign website. It's the things that I care about, and it's investing in people, and that's where we're going to get the best return.
Okay, thank you. What investments to expand long-term services and supports in the community for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities will you advocate for?
Well, I'm still learning. I'll be honest. I'm going to listen to ISAC, listen to those who are receiving services, so that when we're making our investments, that people that are affected have a voice in that. So I would support more funding, as I said, for fully implementing a statewide transition plan, and I would support increased services to have people have a better chance to live their best lives. Those are the kind of things I would support.
Okay, thank you. Will you support the closure of Pennsylvania's 4 remaining state centers?
Yeah, I would support the closure. I think we have to be careful at the same time to make sure that supports are in place and that we have a proper transition plan. We need to follow Olmsted. We need to be sure that we're transitioning. I have heard my wife say it so many times. My wife is in this line of work, and people should be able to live, love, and work and play in their community, and moving people from these restrictive environments is important, and it has to be a budget priority as well. But we also have to make sure that people who are waiting for services and the rest of the community is ready. So those are sort of the walking and chewing gum concerns that we have in a closure, or at least the secondary concerns that we have to look at. But it has to be a priority.
How will you work to address the shortage of direct support professionals?
This is something affecting the entire state in so many different ways. And, I see it as a workers' compensation attorney over and over again. We have people who are caring for folks with disabilities and older Pennsylvanians that are getting paid less than people working at McDonald's. And we need to increase salaries. We need to make sure that people are paid a living wage. So those are, we also need to increase recruitment efforts and retention. So, I have said over and over again, and on the campaign trail and otherwise, it's a core belief of mine that we have to pay people a living wage. And it's even more important in this area. And it's even more important to have a sort of a broad perspective and making sure that we're also doing things legislative to create incentives for recruitment and for retention efforts.
Okay. What actions will you take to assist in reducing the risk of crimes committed against people with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
This is an area where we really need to put a great amount of work in and to protect some of the more vulnerable people living in our communities. I have supported, we have a non-discrimination law in my borough. I've supported non-discrimination laws. That's one of the things I think we can look at. I believe sentencing enhancements in these situations are important. I think we can learn from other states as well. One of the things we could look at is an offender registry that would help families see or know folks that have committed crimes or abuse against those with disabilities. And also, I think we could try and enhance screening efforts as well for staffing.
How will you work to ensure the education system in Pennsylvania meets the needs of all children, especially those with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
I would advocate for more inclusive and supported classrooms. I think in general we haven't properly funded our schools, especially for those with disabilities. As a parent, I've dealt with child studies, and I understand IEPs. Also, as you know, my wife, in being in this work, I'm trying to learn as well. I think all school districts should be following the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and providing these supports. So parents aren't have to sort of fight on their own for it. So those are some of the things that I would support.
What ways will you promote meaningful employment opportunities in your district for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
I think we need to have better training and job opportunities, especially when folks are transitioning to adult life. We're an employment first state. We should be helping people take these next steps as they turn to employment. It's one of the most important things we could do. It also helps us in so many other areas. If we're effectively transitioning folks to work and self-support, I mean that should be a goal. I would support incentives for folks hiring those with disabilities. As a workers' compensation attorney, I know how important it is to have work and meaningful work, and everyone deserves that. That's essentially the autonomy and being able to live the lives that you want is one of the main reasons I'm running. So. This is really an important issue. It's probably one of the more important issues that we could be dealing with, and finding ways to creatively deal with, manage, and provide incentives, I think is an important factor.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
It was great being here. Thank you so much.
Tim, thank you so much here today for answering these questions. We really appreciate your time, and Diana, you as well. Thank you so much.
The Meet the Candidates series is an opportunity for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families to hear from candidates on disability issues. Candidates from all parties have been invited to participate. The ARC of Pennsylvania is a non-partisan organization and does not endorse political candidates.